Hi guys, it's Monica. I'm doing a video today on making corrections or bracket changes after your brackets have been built, just to show you a few different things that you need to be aware of when that happens. Inevitably, that will always happen in an event. It's just something we need to get used to, and just keep in mind that we are in the customer service business, and even though it could be annoying to you that people have bracket changes or didn't register their child for the correct age group or whatnot, sometimes we just have to smile and fix the problems and go on with our lives and give good customer service and not be irritable. So basically, the first thing I'm going to show you is dealing with a wrestler who you have in a bracket, but he just got sick or he got hurt or one of his teammates knows he's not coming to your event. So you need to just delete him off of a bracket. So in this scenario, all of our brackets are already built. Everything has been numbered. So if I go into bout detail, I actually already have them loaded onto the mats. I'm already set and ready to go. Basically, wrestling just needs to start happening. So then you get the bracket changes at the last minute a lot of times. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So basically, you can get there a few different ways. I'm going to be dealing with 16U because that's what I have set up. I'm going to go into the 126-pound bracket, and I'm going to delete a kid that I know is not going to be there. There's a couple of different ways to do it. When you're just deleting a kid, sometimes I like to go into the actual bracket, find the kid. Let's just pretend it's this Nicholas Schultz kid. One thing I wanted to show you is if you are on this window with the bracket and you use Control F, it brings up a little window that you can type in, and it'll find, did I spell it wrong? Yep. It'll find them instead of you having to like search through. So if I put in his name, it'll show me where he's at on the bracket, which is kind of cool. And then obviously as the bracket fills in, it'll highlight every spot that he's in. So if I just need to get rid of this kid, sometimes when it's me, I just go in and I change him to the word bye. That way I know I won't accidentally do something freaky like rebuild the whole bracket when I don't mean to. So now this kid has a bye. I would also at that point call this kid up. I would say, hey announcer, can you call Max Carlin from Aviators to the head table? I would let him know that his competitor for that first match is not here and he's going to receive a bye for that match. That's how I would do it. Then I don't have to renumber or anything. Taking a kid out of a bracket is easy. The only thing you need to be aware of doing it this way is if your bracket is maybe has 17 kids in it and it's actually going to need to change the bracket type when you do this, then you wouldn't want to change him to a bye because you would have a bracket with, well, the likelihood of him being the one with the match wouldn't be likely. Anyway, you would want to go into it a different way. So let's just pretend that one of these guys, well, that's not going to be a good example, but let's see. I don't really have one that's going to, oh, this one would. This one needs to change a bracket size. So if I take one kid out of 195, it's going to need to change into an 8-man bracket. So let me show you a different way to delete a kid out of a bracket. Let's just say that this Jacob Hepner kid, we know that he's not there. So we go and we click onto his name, bring up his profile, and we say delete participant. I type in the word delete as it says. It's going to ask me how I want to handle this situation. Basically, you just read it. This wrestler is being removed from a bracket that has already been created. How would you like to handle this situation? Change the bracket type if needed. Yes. Replace wrestler with bye. Obviously, we know it's going to change it into an 8-man bracket, so there's not going to be any byes, but this is always going to be bye. Redraw nobody, shift nobody. So this means that even though it's changing the size of bracket it is, it's just going to take him out and leave everyone in the same position they were on the new 8-man bracket. And then look down here, it has a little warning. Don't forget to check the schedule and reprint brackets and bouts whenever you make a change like this. So this just means that you need to check your bout detail. Like I said, I already had matches assigned to mats. I know 195 isn't assigned because it's doing it in age and weight order, so it's only through 126 that's assigned to a mat at this time. But you just need to make sure that you reprint the bracket, you reassign a match to that mat if it took one off, things like that. So I click finish. It's going to make me type in the word finish. Just so you know, anytime that this little pop-up happens, it means you're doing something that's a little bit of a big deal. And if you don't mean to do it, then don't type in the word and say finish, you know, or whatever it asks you to do. Just say cancel if it's not what you intended. Just know that anytime this pops up, you're doing something that's kind of a big deal. All right, so I push finish. And then I might need to redraw everyone in this particular scenario because I see now that these guys are not seated correctly. Oh, wait. I don't know why those guys are gray. They don't have a seating criteria. Anyway, that's kind of irrelevant. 1 and 2 are still, the leveled kids are still in the 1 and 2 spot, so you're good to go. But as you notice, now you don't have any bout numbers. So I'm going to do all of my bracket changes first, and then I'm going to show you how to handle renumbering. Basically, anytime you change a bracket like this, it's going to take away all the bout numbers. And that is something that I'll teach you about. All right, so now we're going to add a wrestler to this event because we realized that, or his parents are there and realize he's not on the bracket and needs to be. So we're going to go ahead and add him to 132. I'm actually going to add him to 106. So you can do this a couple of different ways. It's easy to do like on-site registration or quick registration when you're on the live site. It'll sometimes, if you add in his USA Wrestling number, it'll just pop in all of his fields. We're in the testing site, so that wouldn't work here anyway. I'm gonna do this kid who I've had the opportunity to watch quite a bit. Just use his name in here. Said 106, I think. I'll just make him be from Green Bay. And then I don't really need anything else in here. I would want to put his card number in if it were real life, but I'm not going to today. Now, this wrestler is being added to a bracket that has already been created. How would you like to handle this situation? Do you want him to be automatically placed? Basically, it's going to take one of the buys and take it away. Would you like to change the bracket type? Yes. He doesn't get a seed, so he's no seed, and I'm redrawing nobody. So basically, it's just going to take a byline, put this kid on it, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to push finish. Sometimes when it's like a fishy situation, like I know that a couple of his teammates are on that bracket or something like that, I might want to choose manually instead of automatic. But in this case, I'm just going to use automatic. So now if I go into 16U106, the bracket, I can again use Control F, type in Omania, and there he is. He's right there. So he's on there, but again, all of our bout numbers are gone because I added one in there. So again, you just will need to fix that before wrestling can start, or else it's going to be pretty messed up. All right, now we're going to talk about how to change the weight class of a kid who's already on the bracket. Let's just use the same bracket. Let's say this Ben Cross kid is in the wrong bracket. We're going to change him. So I just clicked on his name. You can get there a few different ways. Just open his wrestler profile. You're going to want to change him to the correct weight class. Let's just pretend that his parents just fumbled when they were registering him. They chose 106 when he's actually 160, which would be a pretty big deal that you would have to fix, clearly. And click Save Participant. Now this time it's going to ask you how you want to handle both brackets. So this is the one he's being removed from, and this is the one he's being added to. So basically, the questions are always the same. Do you need to change the bracket type? The answer should always be yes. Replace the wrestler with a bye? Yes is a logical answer, although in this case, we're going to have to go back to the bracket and make sure it didn't create a double bye. Redraw nobody, shift nobody. That's pretty important if your brackets have already been published, because you don't want to redraw a bracket unless you absolutely have to, because everyone already knows who they're wrestling. They're either happy or sad about their placement on the bracket, and you just kind of leave that alone. So same thing on this one. Do you want to automatically place him on a line on the bracket? You can do automatic or manual like we just talked about. Do you want to change the bracket type? Yes. Do you want to have him be a seed on the bracket? No. Do I want to redraw? No, I don't want to redraw. So it's nobody. I want to redraw nobody. All right, so then I click finish. It's going to make me type in the word finish. And now on both, well, 106 was already done, but now 103, if I go look at the bracket, there's not going to be, oh, there's bout numbers.
It's because you put him in 160.
Oh yeah, I put him in 160, sorry. I put him in 160, so if I go to 160, you'll notice that the bracket has no bout numbers. I was like, that doesn't make sense. That is true. I moved him way up. All right, let's go to 106 really quick. Anytime you replace a wrestler with the word bye, like we just told it to do, I always go through and skim. So like what I'm looking for is anyone who's on this line. That's the easiest way to visualize it, because if you have that, you know you have a double bye, which means there's like both of these lines would be bye, and it would actually push this kid clear out to here sometimes. Anyway, you just look for anywhere that it might say bye twice, double check it, see if you're still looking relatively even on your bye placement. I have one match here, one match here, one match here. Yep, that looks even as you can get. There's two matches on the top side and one on the bottom, so I'm good to go. I can just go and renumber, and then I'll be ready to rock and roll after I check my about detail page to see if it screwed up any of my mat assignments that were already in place before I started this process. So in order to renumber, I go to Operating, Number Schemes. The other thing I want to show you real quick is you can go to About Schedule or About Detail. About Schedule is easier to visualize. Do you see these little question marks? So 106 I changed. This is 106 again. 160 doesn't have any, and 113 doesn't have any bout numbers. That's a big problem. So we obviously need to renumber. Just so you know, this is a really nice thing to just visualize before you kind of push play on your tournament when you're going to start wrestling. Just come here and make sure there's no question marks so that you know you're good to go on your numbers. If there are any question marks, you're going to need to go to the number schemes page and apply those number schemes. You don't need to basically deal with anything that's not messed up. So I know that 16U is the only thing I messed around with. So I'm going to need to just apply those. So I clicked this toggle to get them all unchecked. Then I just checked 16U, apply selected schemes. Here's a drop down with some choices. Leave frozen status as it is right now. You can use that if you want. I only use that one when I'm first numbering because nothing's numbered. So obviously frozen status, nothing's frozen, nothing's numbered. I just use it. But when I renumber, I have to make some choices. It's important to know that if you are assigned to a mat and you made a few bracket changes to that particular mat, you're probably going to need to unfreeze existing numbers, which means you're going to renumber that whole mat. In most cases, freeze existing bout numbers is nice because people who already kind of have their bout numbers written on their hand or whatever, they don't need to worry about going to look at their bracket. You don't need to worry about printing out all new wall brackets if you have them posted. You can just freeze existing bout numbers. Those matches that are in addition to the ones that you already had are going to be a duplicate bout number, but that is way less intrusive when you haven't made a ton of bracket changes than changing everyone's bout number for the whole day. So freeze existing bout numbers is a popular choice. I use unfreeze existing if my brackets haven't been published yet. A lot of times at a youth event, I build my brackets the night before, and if I do happen to number them, which I usually actually don't until pretty shortly before the tournament starts, so I don't have to worry about renumbering. But if I did number them, but I haven't really published them to the public, I could use unfreeze, and then I wouldn't have any duplicate or missing bout numbers, depending on what you've done. So in this case, I'm going to show you how to just use freeze existing bout numbers, push continue. It's going to make me type in apply like I always do when I'm applying number schemes. Now I can go to bout schedule again, and sure enough, 106 has bout numbers. But as you notice, they have a duplicate bout number. So 106 has 2003, and one of the 113 matches also has 2003. Usually by the time a kid comes and asks, you know, why they're not showing up on the monitor with the bouts showing what's coming up, usually it's pretty quick for them to pop on there too. And so if they do come ask you at the head table, just say, you're the next bout number 2003, and you'll be just fine. It's good to go. That's the answer I use for that. So now I'm ready to wrestle. So I want to go back over to my bout detail page, and lo and behold, if I don't go ahead and assign these to a mat, they're basically going to wrestle out of order. My 106 won't wrestle right now like I want them to. And so I would need to go ahead and just manually go in and put these on a mat so that everyone's going to wrestle in the order I want them to. You can put this on whichever mat. Obviously, I don't go through and change them all to the correct sequence of mats. I have them loaded on all 7 mats. I would just probably put this on mat 3 so it wrestles right before this one. That would work fine for me. You could choose any mat you really want. The other thing I like to do just to make sure that everything's going to work correctly is I like to go back to my mats page and just click on load mats again. I probably could have done that before, what I just did over on bout detail, but I just like to do load mats just in case when I have this many mats going, then I don't have to go through and kind of count how many are loaded on each mat. I just know if I do that load mats again, it's gonna basically pick up. In this case, it looks like I might have 1 too many on mat 3, which is fine to start with. It'll correct itself after the first few matches. I have 1 on mat 3, 2 on mat 3, another 1 on mat 3, and then there's a 4th one down at the bottom. And that's just fine, especially at the beginning of a tournament. It'll resolve itself. So that's pretty much how you make corrections, and just making sure that you really understand what you're doing with your number schemes, and making sure that if you already had the mats loaded with wrestlers, that you would go back and check the spout detail to make sure that nothing's missing. That's pretty much bracket changes in a nutshell. So if you have any questions, feel free to always reach out to any of us on our committee, and we can help you specifically. So have a great day.